Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Habitual Line Crosser, and today, Knox has decided to grace us with his presence. Do you want to say hello? Speak? That's a good boy. So, we're talking about the country of North Korea. I was gonna do like the accent, like, you do not like me. No, it's China. I don't even know what I do for North Korea anymore. Look, the characters have taken over. I'm no longer in charge. But who are they going to verse? Well, they're going to verse all of USFK, which is the United States Forces South Korea, which is all U.S. forces and the South Korean forces. But that was also a little uneven, so I was like, well, let's just add a little bit on to try and even things out. So I gave them the entire U.S. Navy 7th Fleet. Why didn't I give them the entire Pacific Fleet? You're going to find out here shortly. But first, a word from today's video sponsor.
Whoa, this weather's pretty bad.
You know what's not bad, kid? Today's video sponsor, Aura.
What's Aura, Grandpa Buff?
Recently, AT&T had a data breach where 70 million people had their information leaked out onto the dark web. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have AT&T, so it's not a big deal. Well, if you happen to text somebody or call someone who did have AT&T, they might have your information too. You ever get those text messages that say, like, you gotta pick up your stuff in the nearest store or something, and please use this URL?
Oh yeah, I get those all the time.
Yeah, well, not anymore, because Aura's here to help. So Aura has credit and identity monitoring, VPN service. They pay attention to everything going on with your credit in case anyone wants to use that to their advantage. They'll send you nearly instantaneous notifications if your data has been leaked or breached anywhere. And here's another cool feature that they have.
What's that, Grandpa Buff?
They have an AI-powered call screener that'll screen your text messages and phone calls, allowing you to go out there and do interceptions or whatever else the heck you got going on.
Oh, that would be great. That saves so much of my time.
You're stuck in the hangar. Don't even lie about that shit.
Well, how do I get it?
Well, you can click on the link in the description of this video, or you can go to https://aura.com/linecrosser.
Well, I'm gonna have to go get that right away. Wow, I feel so much better since I found out about Aura.
Yeah, HLC even has us on the family plan. Why do you think those puppies behind you are so happy?
Wow, that makes me feel a lot better. I don't know if it's the puppies, the disco balls, or the balloons, but this is awesome.
All right, kid. Let's go get a snow cone. My treat.
Oh, right behind you, Grandpa Buff.
So we're going to go right down the list. We're going to start out with the numbers. Remember, this information was incredibly difficult to find, because I can find like America's total numbers, but finding out what is in South Korea from the US is really difficult. And then finding out about North Korean shit in general is difficult because they think it's all fancy and super secret, and it's all just garbage. It's fucking garbage, okay? But anyways, North Korea, the Korean People's Army, that's what they're referred to as. They have a ground force of 950,000 active and 420,000 reserve. The Korean People's Army Air Force. It's not, they don't have their own Air Force, it's the Army Air Force. That's, you know, just a reminder, United States Air Force used to belong to us until, like, I don't know, the 50s or something. I fucking don't care. We're going to absorb you back up someday. The Korean People's Army Air Force is 110,000 personnel. The Korean People's Army Navy. Yeah, they have an Army Navy. They couldn't cut out the word Army. The only time we talk about Army Navy is when we talk about the football game, Go Army, Beat Navy. Just remember that. But the Korean People's Army Navy has 60,000 active personnel, and the Korean People's Army Special Operations Forces is 200,000 estimated. But here's the thing. Everyone's like, man, they have 200,000 operators. First of all, their training just sucks. You ever see these guys like karate chopping bricks and shit? Doesn't make you bulletproof. But number two, that's also including like cyber warfare and psyops and all those other like pencil pushing dudes who just like don't go and kick in doors. So don't freak out too much about the 200K. In total, they have 1.56 million, that is with an M, personnel in their military that they can call up. But they're also conscription-based military and can call up anybody who they want, because that's just what they do. I do want to point out the budget of the North Korean military, that as of 2023, they had a $2 billion budget of the North Korean military. And that sounds like a lot until you realize with 1.56 million people, if you were to just divvy that money out to all of them, that's about $1,200 a year per person.
Damn! I'm sorry.
Look, if you want good shit, you gotta pay for good shit. I'm just gonna call it what it is, all right? But the South Korean budget in that same year was 45 billion, which is 2.54% of their GDP. Meanwhile, that 2 billion is 5% of North Korea's GDP. Look, I'm just saying, everything's better with capitalism. And now I know someone's gonna be like, well, they're democratic republic, they're fucking socialism or communism, they're bad shit. There's one dude in charge who can't be fucking ousted under any conditions. He's a bad person, all right? Fuck you. Capitalism is better because you can do anything you want. We've unlocked the power of the individual. Communism or whatever they have might be good, but unfortunately the only thing you can't do is feed your people.
Boom. Roasted.
The bread line's really fucking long in North Korea. But anyway, South Korea, the Republic of Korea Army. So if you hear me say ROK or ROK, that's the Republic of Korea. That is South Korea, okay? So the ROK Army has 365,000 active personnel. The Republic of Korea Navy has 70,000 active, including 29,000 Marines. So that 70,000 is not in addition to, it's just those are both in there, okay? The ROK Air Force has 65,000 personnel. They have 500,000 in total, but they are also a conscription-based military that everybody in the country has to serve for 18 months, and then you are able to go on your merry way. But if I almost said Uncle Sam. God, I'm trying really hard not to make this racist. Uncle something, anyways, in South Korea says, hey, we need you to come fight in this war. Guess what? You go. So they have 3.1 million in reserve, technically, that they could use at any given time. Now, when it comes to U.S. forces in South Korea, there are 20,000 Army personnel. The total number is 28,500 of all U.S. personnel. This includes Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and even Space Force. They have 20 Guardians there. Don't have Coast Guard. Sorry, Coasties. Now, I was going to include the entire Navy Pacific Fleet. I was like, yeah, let's do the whole Navy Pacific Fleet. But that made it very uneven against North Korea, because that's 150,000 sailors and Marines with 2,000 aircraft and 200 ships. I was like, maybe we'll pull the punches a little bit. So I went with the 7th Fleet, which has 27,000 sailors and Marines with 70 ships and 150 aircraft. Now we're going to move on to aircraft. What does the North Korean military have when it comes to air power? Fucking embarrassment. I feel really bad for them. They have 35 MiG-29s. Yeah, that's accurate. The MiG-29 was developed, fun fact, to combat the F-15, but it's awful in every way, and the F-15 is still a fucking powerhouse. They have 26 MiG-21s. No, that was not a typo. That is actually accurate. They absolutely have MiG-21s still in service. They have 56 MiG-23s. Those are the frog foot things, I think. No, maybe those are Su-25s. I don't fucking remember. But anyways, and then you have 18 Su-7s. That's single digit. That's accurate. Su-7s. They have 38 Su-25s. They have 80 Ilyushin 2-28. They have 106 Shenyang F5s. They have 97 Shenyang J6s, and they have 120 Chengdu J7s. When it comes to their rotary wing, when it comes to combat rotary wing that they have a lot of old Russian stuff. They don't really have anything made right there in North Korea, probably a byproduct of like not having any money. But they have 20 Mi-24 Hinds, which are, that's a significant amount of firepower you bring to the battlefield. The ROK, Republic of Korea, has 61 F5s. Now, nowadays the United States uses the F5 for training, but they're still a really capable aircraft and they'll still do the job. They have 59 F-15Es. Uh-oh. Suddenly everything up there got a lot more even, because the F-15 right now is 104-0 when it comes to air battles. Like, fighting in the air is 104-0. And something I learned while I was doing my research, I didn't know this, but the F-16, when it comes to air fighting, not surface to air, because that's a completely different thing, but air fighting is 79-1. Which is pretty goddamn impressive, because everybody in the world has the F-16. They have 118 F-16Cs, but then they also have 49 F-16Ds. They have 39 F-35s. They also have 20 more of those on order. And then they have 60 F-A-50 Fighting Eagles. And then they're working on a new thing, and it's look, South Korea, we got to give you, I give you some applause here, my good sir, but you're not there. So they're building 20 KF-21 Borame is what they're called. Borame? I don't know how to say that goddamn word. But what it looks like is an F-35 and an F-22 crashed into each other and it still kept flying. It also doesn't have any internal weapons bays. So they admit that it is reduced visibility on the radar cross-section, but they're not calling it a stealth aircraft. They're not calling it really anything except for like, hey, this is it. They don't even say it's an air superiority. They're like trying to design it as an air superiority, but it's not there. Now, when it comes to the US, this was really, really ungodly hard to find. There is 45 F-16s in the U.S. Forces South Korea. Now, the F-16, you might think that like that's a low number of F-16s, even compacting with their 118 that they have. But you got to understand, the F-16 has a fucking legacy, okay? So in Desert Storm, 249 F-16s were there, okay? It sounds like a lot. Until you realize that they flew 13,340 sorties. There was 3 of them shot down. The other 4 that were hit made it all the way back to base. So 3 of them were shot down out of 13,340 fucking sorties. The F-16, I'm going to say this, but somebody in the comment section will be like, that's not accurate. I'm going to say it anyways. It rewrote the book on Wild Weasel. And if you don't know what a Wild Weasel is, it's you fly through the air until an enemy SAM locks onto you, you fire an anti-radiation missile at that surface-to-air missile system, the radar on the ground, and you bug out quick, fast, and in a fucking hurry. You literally put yourself in the target of a surface-to-air missile system in order to kill it. It's the scariest thing I could ever imagine. Those dudes, how did they fit their balls in their flight suit? So the United States has around 70 attack helicopters in South Korea. Now, as for the only thing aside from one of their fucking, what are they called? Like, not an amphibious, it looks like a baby aircraft carrier. I just looked it up. It's like an L shit. Apparently they have on board the USS Ronald Reagan. This is the closest number I could find. They have 90 fixed and rotary wing on board that aircraft carrier at any given time. So I shot low and I said, let's say 50 of them are combat aircraft. So we'll just say that they bring 50 combat aircraft to the party, which are most likely F-18 Hornets and Super Hornets. Actually, I don't think we run Hornets anymore. I think we're all on the Super Hornets. I was not able to find out if there are F-35s on board the USS Ronald Reagan. I looked, couldn't find that shit anywhere. Trust me, like, a lot of my research is really easy to do. This one was a absolute nightmare because nobody wanted, like, no one has compiled this information anywhere else. So I was reading like case studies and shit to try and find this information. It was not easy. So North Korea, when it comes to their Navy, let's see if the 7th Fleet is going to have a big fight on their hands. Spoiler alert, they're fucking not. I feel embarrassed. I introduced the 7th Fleet to this before I got to this part of this, and I was like, oh, they're here anyways, fucking, okay. So when it comes to submarines, they have, I'm using this term accurately, don't anybody get offended. They have the Yono class midget sub. They have 70 of those. They have the Romeo class submarine from China. They got 22 of those. When it comes to frigates, they have the Najin class. They have 1. That's it. They have 1. They also have a lot of missile boats and torpedo boats. Unfortunately, they cannot operate on the high seas. They are only designed to go about 50 miles away from shore. They can't do much further than that. Almost all of them are outfitted with the P-51 Termit, which is an anti-ship missile. It is a variant of the Silkworm SY-1, which, if you G-Van pull the damn thing up, it looks like someone from an Acme Looney Tunes cartoon built this. It looks silly. Like, I'm not, he's gonna patch in the Aladdin thing here. Like, it needs to be pointy. Like, it's not pointy. It's not intimidating. It looks stupid. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's a great missile. It just looks dumb. When it comes to missile boats, they have the OSA class. They got 12 of those. They also have Korean versions of the OSA, North Korean versions of the OSA called the Soju. They got 10 of those. For those of my friends who have been to South Korea, I don't know about you, but if I had 10 Sojus, I ain't fighting fucking anybody. I might fight gravity. That's about it. Okay? Anyways, they also have 19 other missile craft. Like, it doesn't say what the hell they are. I was unable to find that. I'm assuming that they're OSAs or made up. Could be that too. They also have 200 torpedo boots. Torpedo boats. I might be having a stroke here, folks. I'm going to stop rhyming as fast as I can. Okay, torpedo boats. They got 200 of them bad boys, 62 of which are the Chaho. Chaho. C-H-A-H-O. It is it's a fire support unit. They're designed for land attack and surface ship attack. And what it is they took a multiple launch rocket system and slapped it in the middle of a boat. And I don't know about you, but to me, as maybe pretending to be an anti-ship missile or a surface warfare vessel, that looks like a real juicy, explodey, fireworky target in my book. I'm just throwing that out there. You got unsecured explosives sitting on the deck of a ship. That I'm gonna make that bitch shine like the sun. Now for The Rock. Welcome to The Rock. I love that movie. The Rock with Sean Connery. Great movie. If you've never seen it, you should go watch it after this. Stay here first. Okay. So when it comes to The Rock, they have subs. They have the Dosan on. Oh man, fuck. These names suck, man. I'm going to try and say these without sounding like a racist white dude, but I'm trying here. Dosan on Changho class. They got 3 of those subs. They have the Son Wonyil class. They have 9 of those. They have the Jangbogo class. 9 of those. And of course they have 9 of those. They were buy one get one. I'm sorry. My jokes will only progressively get worse. Anyways, and when it comes to destroyers, they have 3 of these. They have the Sejong the Great class. So I went off on my little tism and I was like, I've never heard of Sejong the Great, so let's look into this dude. So he rolled in the 1400s. He is the guy who invented the South Korean written language known as Hangul. He also did a whole bunch of like economic boosts and he rewrote the tax code for like farmers because he understood that his economy was almost entirely based off of farming. So he rewrote the tax code so that farmers, if they had a good crop, they would pay more taxes, but if they had a bad crop, they would pay less taxes. It was a variable tax code. It was the first time it was ever done. Also, kind of a cool but also horrible thing at the same time, he introduced 100 days of maternity leave for, I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube, hippity hoppity people or property. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, for those that worked for the government. Yeah, for free, forever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you guys picking up what I'm letting down? All right. 100 days of maternity leave for them. And then their husbands, eventually, he introduced 30 days of paternity leave. Kind of makes me feel a little behind the power curve. Dude was doing it in the 1400s. He was doing it for people who were, I can say this, enslaved, but whatever. Anyways, he also created an institute known as the Hall of Worthies, where they offered scholarships and all sorts of things, and their job was to research technological advancements. So I can understand why the guy's called Sejong the Great. They also have another one named after a great. my tism didn't tickle on that one, so I didn't look it up. So they have 6 Chungumong Yi Sun Sin class destroyers. Fuck, I'm not saying that again. And then they have 3 Kwangeto. That came out super racist. Kwangeto the Great class destroyers. Then when it comes to frigates, they have 8 Daegu class. I know that one because Daegu's a place in South Korea, and I don't think I've been there. And then they have 6 Incheon class frigates. I have been to Incheon. And then they have 2 Ulsan class frigates. They also have the Pohang class corvette. They have 3 of those, and that pretty much makes up the entirety of the South Korean Navy. So I looked into what the 7th Fleet has. Now, this is the thing. When I was looking through this, I went to like a U.S. Navy page, and it says like who is where with what. Y'all some liars, man, because none of the fleets had like any Ohio-class submarines assigned. None of them. And I know them bitches are out there, okay? They are floating apocalypses. But none of them had those, so I'm a little upsetty spaghetti. But anyways, when it comes to the 7th Fleet, we have, let me see, we'll count up all of the super carriers in this entire fight. Ours, okay, so 1, and then there's 3 Ticonderoga class cruisers in the 7th Fleet, 7 Arleigh Burke class destroyers, and 4 LA class submarines. That makes up the entirety of the 7th Fleet. Certain combat ships. They still have like LCACs and they have amphibious assault vessels, but like I didn't want to mention and really dig into the weeds on like the amphibious vehicles because North Korea, South Korea, and the US all have a shit ton of those. And then when it comes to mine vessels, North Korea and South Korea, like hundreds of them. They have both prepared very heavily for a fight with each other, just not like anywhere else in the world. So bear that in mind. So we're moving on to tanks. When it comes to tanks, the North Koreans, there's an S on there. The North Koreans have 3,500 tanks. Here's the thing, though. They're all mostly T-34s. I'm not making that up, that museum piece. T-54 and 55s, another museum piece, and T-62s. With 175 of the Type 9 that they have, which are also around the same timeline, and then they have 5 operational variants of a... they took a T-62, they modified the shit out of it, and they're calling it the Chonma-ho, which is like a North Korean version of that. It's supposed to be all updated and stuff like that. So... okay, 3,500 tanks. That's respectable. The Rock, South Korea, has 33 T-80s, and my tism tickled. I'm like, we all haven't been friends in a long time. How the fuck did you get T-80s? Apparently, very recently, Russia had to pay South Korea some debts from the Korean War. I couldn't figure out what the debt was, but they're like, yes, comrade, instead of paying you in rubles or that Western money, I will pay you in tanks. And South Korea was like, fuck it, we'll take T-80s. I know one of them bitches end up in the US, and we studying the fuck out of it. I can't imagine being, never mind. I want to say being so fucking poor as a country, you have to pay your debts with tanks, but I didn't want to dig into that because, like, we're kind of in a real bad spot. Anyways, and then when it comes to the K1A1 Black Panther, they have 2,500 of those. Or excuse me, K1A1 and the K2 Black Panther. I wasn't able to find individual numbers of each, but those are both, Korean-made tanks, and they have 2,500 of those total. Now, the U.S. forces South Korea, obviously, sorry, the 7th Fleet doesn't have tanks right now. This is a true story. It's a real thing that happened. I think it happened in the late 80s, early 90s. Somebody was ordering a part on board of a Nimitz-class carrier, and they're like, I need this part. And they fucking put a 1 or a 0 where a 0 or a 1 should have been. They fucked up the NSN for it, and they ordered the turret from an Abrams main battle tank. And, like, no one in the chain was like, why does a turret need to go to an aircraft carrier? We were just like, okay. And then we just sent it. So there was literally some time in American history that there was an Abrams turret on an aircraft carrier. Yes, that's correct. America accidentally orders more shit than most countries can get. All right, moving forward. U.S. forces South Korea that is stationed there in South Korea, the best number I can find is around 50 Abrams. I don't know if these are M1A1s or M1A2s. The SEPs models, I don't know. I would like to assume that because they're so close to the fight, they're like SEP V2s or SEP V3s, but I don't know. And if you think that's a little, that's not many tanks, HLC. Why do we have so few tanks there? All right, I want to take you back in time to the Battle of 73 Easting. So, Battle of 73 Easting, also known as the greatest fucking beatdown of Russian equipment that America has ever delivered. I'm going to make this a long story short, but the U.S. was like, we're going to go in and fuck shit up, and the Iraqi, what was it, fucking Royal Guard, Republican Guard, whatever the fuck they were called, they were just like, no, you're not, and America's like, okay. So American Abrams and Bradleys rolled through, and when it was all over and done with, there was 160 enemy tanks destroyed, mostly T-72s, which are newer than everything North Korea has, and 180 armored personnel carriers. We lost 1 tank and 2 Bradleys. And at one point in time, I remember reading this while I was reading through 73 Easting, 12 American tanks came up over the hill, and they were ambushed by 50 enemy T-72s. They were ambushed by 50 enemy T-72s. The T-72s lost that battle. Not a single American Abrams was lost in that fight. Fuck around and find out. All right, let's talk about missiles. Kim loves his fucking missiles. There are so many goddamn missiles in North Korea, so we're just going to mention a few of them. We want to talk about the Hwasong everything. They have so many Hwasongs. It's so much fun to say. Hwasong, from like the fucking 7 all the way up to the 15, which is currently in development. So the furthest one that they have reaching is the Hwasong 14, and that has a range of 10,400 kilometers. That does fall into the ICBM category, because to be an intercontinental ballistic missile, you have to range over 3,400 miles, which is like 40-something kilometers. So, or 4,000 kilometers. He has a lot. Just assume it's a metric fuck ton. The lowest range you'll see is the KN-25, which has a range of 380 kilometers. So they can range all of South Korea. Like I could have talked about missiles for an hour and a half. I'm not going to go into that. The Republic of Korea, the ROC, has this. I didn't know. This is actually super fucking cool. Did you know they have? It's called the NHK 2. It stands for Nike Hercules Korea 2. Yes, that Nike Hercules, the American air defense Nike Hercules, they re-engineered it and made it into a surface-to-surface missile. that has a maximum range of 250 kilometers. It's just a high explosive. It's not a nuclear payload like the US had, but yeah. They also have the Hyunmoo 2C with a range of 800 kilometers, and that's a ballistic missile. They have the Hyunmoo 3 with a range of 1,500 kilometers. That's a cruise missile. They have the Hwasong 3, which is a range of 1,500 kilometers, and that is a sub-launch cruise missile. And then they have just all those that I mentioned. They have like 17 other variants of all of those. And then when it comes to the US, we have HIMARS. We have ATACMS. That's what's there. And then, of course, fucking Tomahawk cruise missiles and all the missiles that are on board of our aircraft, but we're not going to dig into that too much. Let's talk about air defense. Good old Kim up there smoking his cigarettes and having a medical condition called the FAT. Sorry, fuck you, Kim. What are you going to do? Come to the U.S. and do something about it? Get fucked. So he has an unknown number of air defense systems, but I do know I was able to find some of the missile counts. So when it comes to the S-75, which was a 1950s design Russian air defense system, they have around 1,950 missiles for those. Sounds like a real juicy target. They have the S-125. They have 300 missiles for that. And it is another old Russian system, but I know what's gonna fucking happen. I know as soon as I bring up the S-125 and I start talking shit about it, people can be like, what about the F-117 Nighthawk? Okay, so an F-117 Nighthawk in Serbia in the early 90s, which is a stealth aircraft, was shot down by an S-125 in Serbia, or a Yugoslavian S-125. Do you want to know how that happened? Don't worry, I'll break it down for you here real fucking quick. The U.S. made the same path at the same time every single fucking day for like a month and a half. The pilots were told they could not shoot at that air defense system, so every time it locked them, they just, all right, whatever. The guy tried what worked over a dozen times before it worked, and then after it worked, it never worked again. He turned the frequency way low so he could see the aircraft, fired the missile, and then turned the frequency back up so that the missile would eventually guide itself into where it needed to go. It was actually a pretty ingenious fucking move, but really, like, if you're betting on that working for them, I would not recommend that on the list of shit that I would ever fucking do. So, also, it hit it at a range of 8 miles. I can see a fucking 117 at 8 miles. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. Fanboys and your fucking S-125. So they have a ton of anti-aircraft guns, but these are all manually, like, viewing anti-aircraft guns. And I don't know if you know this, but that's not going to work out well for you. And then for the guys who are like, oh, the S-125, sorry, jumping back to the S-125, that 8 mile thing, I don't know, I just looked it up because I felt like shitting on your face. A HARM has an estimated range of about 30 miles, so wish you the best in your future endeavors, but if you want those aircraft to get within 8 miles, you're probably going to die long before that. But they have, like, you know, the old ones from their Soviet buddies. They got the ZU-23-2, they got the newer models, they have the 22-2 like the Taliban had, and then they had the M1939. If you hear M19 something, that is not reference to an American system. What I found out doing this research is that's just when the US saw it. So we're like, M whatever, M whatever, M whatever. So I guess that's just like the NATO reporting name is the M1939. South Korea has the MIM-104 Patriot system. They got 8 batteries of that. Okay, 8 batteries is up to 8 launchers unclassified. So bear that in mind. They have the KM-SAM Chunggung. Fuck. They have 19 batteries of that with 7 more on order. That is their homegrown medium air defense system that is supposed to be replacing the Patriot units there. They have the, and I love that they still use this. South Korea, I fucking love you. I love that you guys still use this. They have the M167 VADS, which is the Vulcan Air Defense System. And yes, that Vulcan that you're thinking of. So, the Vulcan cannon that is on board almost every combat aircraft, with the exception of the F-35, which has a little bit bigger gun, right? The Vulcan, the 20mm Vulcan. In the 70s and 80s, we took one, slapped it on top of an M113, and we're like, this is how you'll do air defense. The only time it's ever seen combat was in Panama. Guess what? It didn't shoot down airplanes, but it worked really good at mowing through jungles where people were hiding. So, they still use... they have 200 of those, by the way. 200 M167 VADS, which is the same gun that's in most combat aircraft in the United States and the same gun that is on the LPWS, or Land-Based Phalanx Weapon System. You guys might know it as CRAM or CWIS. CWIS is the Navy version. And then they have the KM-SAM, which is a man-pad system, so they can carry that on their shoulder and do what they need to do with it. They have 2,000 of those available for South Korean use. How many aircraft do they have? They have like 500 aircraft? Yeah, I think we're good. At least on the aircraft aspect, because motherfucker has a lot of missiles and a lot of artillery. Okay, so for the U.S. forces in South Korea, we have 8 Patriot batteries. We have 1 THAAD battery, which stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Air Defense, or just Area Defense. Every time I look up that acronym, it's fucking different, THAAD, guys. Give me a break. And then, of course, we have the Aegis. I'm just going to say 1, because all the boats fucking talk to each other, okay? And if you have an Arleigh Burke out there, you got Aegis. If you have a Ticonderoga, you got Aegis. If you have a fucking, I believe it's even on board the Nimitz class carriers. I know they can integrate with it, but I don't know if the system is actually on board. So when it comes to artillery, look, North Korea has a ton of this, and they have a ton of variants of it. This is like their strongest force that they have. They're really lacking in the air defense category. They're really lacking in the air power category. Their Navy is, brown water at best. But when it comes to artillery, they're a force to be reckoned with. So they have, I don't have the exact numbers of these. I wasn't even able to find the round numbers. I don't know how many of these they have, but I know they have several variants of every single one of these things that I'm going to tell you. They have the M1992, which is 120 millimeters. They have the M1977, which is 122 millimeters. They have the M1975, which is 130 millimeters. They have the M1974, which is 152 millimeters. They have the M1978 Kosan. That one actually has a fucking name. That is 170 millimeters. They have the D30, which is 122 millimeters. The D74, which is another 122 millimeters. They have the M46, which is 130 millimeters. The M1937, 152 millimeters. The BM11, which is a variant of the BM21 Grad, so it has 122 millimeter rockets. Then they have the BMD20, which has 200 millimeter rockets. They have the BM24, which has 240 millimeter rockets. And then I was able to find ranges. So out of all these things there, the highest range listed is 40 kilometers. But that system is still in development right now. It is not fully online. Bear in mind, the maximum range of a American 777 is 40 kilometers. Now, the Republic of Korea, the ROK, I actually was able to find these numbers. South Koreans are pretty cool like that, right? So they got the M101A1, which is 105 millimeters. They have 1,988 of those. They were licensed to build those in South Korea from the United States because we no longer use them things anymore. The same thing with the M114, which is 155 millimeters. It's an old American gun we produced from 1941 to 1953. They have 988 of those. They have, for this next one, they have 860 KH-179 155 millimeter guns. They have 1,040 K-55s. They're 155 millimeters, and they may look a lot like a Paladin because they are a licensed built Paladin from the United States. He said, hey, here's the plans, you can make your own. And then what did they do after they built a whole bunch of them? They're like, all right, we're going to build our own. So they built the K9A1 Thunder, which is 155 millimeters, and they have 1,200 of those. That is their local homegrown South Korean driven artillery piece. They had the K105A1. It's 105 millimeters. That's they got 850 of those. They have 156 K136 MLRS. I was able to find their rocket numbers. They have 340,000 rockets for that thing. Granted, they're short-range rockets, but 340,000 rockets, that's going to cause some fucking damage. They have 58 M270 MLRS. That's America's fucking old tracked fucking multiple launch rocket system, and they have 27,000 rockets for that. They have 367 K239 Chunmoos, which they're using to replace the K136. And the reason it's called the K239 is because it's 239 millimeters. That's crazy. I didn't know that until I did the research. But an unknown number of rockets for that. But they have 367 of those, so there's going to be a fucking lot of them. Now, when it comes to the U.S., downside is I wasn't able to find any numbers, but I can guarantee you, just because the Army is there, I almost guarantee we have HIMARS there. We have 777s there, M777, which is 155 millimeters. We have the M119er there, which is 105 millimeters, and we probably have Paladins there. So that's what I'm assuming the U.S. has there. I don't know what those numbers are, nor do I have any idea how much of them is. But it's pretty easy to see right there that the U.S. and South Korea doesn't really have the ability to overwhelm the amount of artillery that they have. So a lot of our work is going to be from long-range strikes. Now let's move in to the war plan. All right. So first things first, if you've ever been stationed in South Korea, you've probably done one of those drills where you get your family, you pack them up as quick as you can, you get them to the airfield. So there's a lot of families from American service members that are living in South Korea. And priority number one is getting them on a bird, getting them the hell out, because we got a war to win. Can you imagine that? You're like in your foxhole, like folding towels, and your wife is telling you you're doing it wrong. Fuck that. I'd rather die. I'm just kidding. I love Mrs. Line Crosser, you know. So first things first, get them out. The downside is because of how much artillery Kim Jong-un has pointed at South Korea, pretty much everything from Seoul up is going to be eliminated right off the rip, because the amount of firepower he can dish, there's no amount of air defense that's going to be able to stop that, especially when it comes to artillery. And he doesn't even have to be accurate. It's just shoot over there. Like that's all they're going to do. They're just going to rain down fire as long as they possibly can, which is why America and the South Koreans got to get a little bit more creative. So stay with me. Priority one is going to be to gain air superiority. Not going to be a hard ask with F-35s in the mix, considering what you're fighting against. The only thing it's going to be hard to do is have enough missiles and machine gun on board to be able to continue the fight. But I have no doubt in my mind we're going to be able to gain air superiority relatively quickly. We also need to eliminate as many air defense systems as we possibly can, because working in a non-contested environment is a whole lot easier than working in a contested environment. We're going to split the 7th Fleet. Okay, the carrier with most of the battle group is going to flank around the Yellow Sea, and a couple of destroyers, maybe a Ticonderoga cruiser and a sub or two, are going to flank around the other side with the Marines on board one of their amphibious assault vehicles. There's a reason for this. So as the 7th Fleet carrier group gets around the Yellow Sea and they get within, striking distance of Pyongyang, because Pyongyang is about 50 miles from the ocean right there. So it's very well within that range. They're going to have to completely annihilate the North Korean Navy. Now, North Korean Navy has a lot of mine ships. They have a ton of mine ships. So mines are going to be, really, really closely paid attention to, but they can't operate out in the deep water. That's where Uncle Sam succeeds. So we're going to be staying out there in the deep water. And if they try and fire rockets at us, then we got Aegis. I'm not really too worried about that. So the Marines, their job is going to be a little bit more difficult, because this is going to be near simultaneous. Like, they're going to split, and then South Koreans are going to start amassing, because as we're hitting, we're going to be taking out as many artillery pieces as we can, as many air defense systems as we can, because you can have all the rounds in the world. If you don't have a gun to fire it, that's the problem. So eliminating the gun is going to be the main priority. The Marine Corps is going to land in Wonsan. Wonsan? Yeah. Wonsan? Yeah. The Marine Corps is going to land there, because I was paying attention. The vast majority of North Korea is just, there's nothing there. I zoomed in over and over and over, and it's just mountains and nothing. If you do that in the US, literally anywhere, you'll find like a building or a couple of buildings or a shack or maybe a farmer's field. There's literally nothing there. Like, nobody lives there, which makes this job easy but could be hard at the same time, because the amount of hidden things that they have there. So as the Marine Corps comes in, they're going to push from Wonsan straight from there down kind of southwest into Kosan, which is the main food production for North Korea. And the reason we want to control that is because this is going to be a little bit like a counterinsurgency fight. There's not a lot of people like in North Korea that once they figure out like he's full of shit, that are going to stick around, Kim. So we have to win the people, it's easier said than done, because we fucking tried it with the Taliban, right? And there's going to be those devout ones that fight to the death, and we're going to oblige them, okay? But the Marines, the U.S. Marines and the South Korean Marines, they're going to be in charge of pushing down there, okay? So the Navy, once they start gaining superiority, their job is going to be to hunt down Kim himself. We have to cut the head off the snake. We have to. As long as he is breathing, he is telling them what to do, and they will not fight any other way than what he tells them to do. If you cut the head off the snake, I doubt they have any succession of command that is going to be worth half a fucking damn, okay? I'm just telling you the way that I think it. The main ground force is going to amass in Cherwon, which is in South Korea. And by this time, we're hoping to have most of the enemy artillery, at least the enemy artillery that can range right there, eliminated. And from there, we're going to, like the South Korean military and the American military, that's the main ground force is going to just start pushing up, okay? And they're going to clear every little village. Hearts and minds, folks, hearts and minds. We got to try and win the population here, because he has a lot of people at his disposal. He just didn't have a lot of money to pay them, feed them, or anything else like that. So that's part of the reason I wanted to control food production with the Marines, is because if we can control food production, we can protect food production, and we can keep feeding all the innocent people who are in North Korea. Humanitarian is like half of this battle, okay? So guess what, Marines? You're not doing it this time. The army's probably going to do it. We're going back to the frozen chosen.
How long I've been waiting for this. Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself, yeah.
I wanted to see where the chosen reservoir was, and was that actually a strategic standpoint? 100% it is, because just south of the chosen is Zhangjin. Zhangjin? Yeah, I think that's the name of it. Yeah, Zhangjin. And Zhangjin, that town, which is pretty small in general, but it has an airfield. If we are able to seize that airfield, either through airborne assets or if they can push all the way up there, then great. And the Navy can stay in the Yellow Sea and just start, shuttling in aircraft and use that as a base of operations to attack further inland, which is great. But if we can't, we need to destroy that. Because if we can't use it, can't nobody use it. Which the same goes for Pyongyang International Airport. We have to eliminate that thing right off the rip. It has no strategic advantage for us and doesn't increase our reach enough for me to waste the resources in taking it. But the one in Zhangjin does. That one makes absolute sense. So by this time, I'm hoping that the vast majority of the North Koreans have either defected or surrendered because, hey man, we don't want the smoke anymore. Just, here's a honey bun, bro. I just want to feed, I just want some food, man. That's all I want. If they haven't, then they're probably going to push into areas we haven't quite cleared yet. So I zoomed in over and over and over. Most of it's either small fishing villages, small farming villages. There's really not a large city until you get to Chongjin. So Chongjin is a pretty decent sized metropolis. It does have an airfield, so again, strategic asset there. It's also way up close to Russia, so that could be the last holdout of the fucking resistance. Now the Marines at that point, considering that we've cleared that whole bottom part, they can probably board the boats again if they want to attack amphibiously. I don't see the advantage there, but they could if they wanted to. Once we take Chongjin, it's going to be just a battle of trying to find out where Kim is hiding. That's all we're going to be doing, is just locating where that guy's hiding. Once we eliminate him, I don't doubt under any circumstances that the South Koreans will just go ahead and be done with it. They're like, I don't want the smoke anymore. Going to be a hard fight, not going to be an easy fight. The benefit we have going into this is that the American military and some members of the South Korean military do have combat experience. The North Korean military has 0. Now, there's rumors that they're going over to fight in Ukraine and getting a little bit of combat experience, but I have no guarantees on that. I looked into drones and UAVs. North Korea has some really old drones and UAVs. Meanwhile, the South Koreans have Global Hawks and MQ-9 Reapers. And so very one-sided when it comes to the air fight. And you can have, 3 million troops. If the enemy controls the air and controls the seas, you're fucked. I'm sorry, you can have as many man pads as you want. As long as they still have that air and still have the ocean, there's nothing you can do. It's going to be heavily dependent on our ability to eliminate their air power, which I have no doubt about, and their naval power, which we might lose a destroyer. Maybe. We might lose a cruiser or a sub to some of the missile boats because they might just saturate enough that we're not able to eliminate that many. I don't know. Hope you guys like this breakdown. I know it was a little bit longer, but I did a lot of homework on this one. This was probably my longest researched video because of how hard it is to find this information. But so as always, do not give in to the 22 a day. Every single one of you are amazing. If you'd like to support the channel, please go to habituallinecrosser.com and get yourself some merch. Thank you guys so much for your support on the Buff Franklin Time to Let the Kid Eat shirt. I can tell you guys love that. By the time this comes out, the pre-order should be coming to a close damn near, so get yours today. Go out and get that bad boy, and we may bring it back here in the future depending on how many of you guys still want it, okay? So without further ado, play me out.